Hello, everyone. I am pleased to welcome you all to the side event, Building a Sustainable Future for the Next Generations. This webinar will be in English because it's part of the High-Level Political Forum on Sustainable Development 2024. My name is Tamires Medeiros, and I represent Fundação Abrinq, a Brazilian organization that has held consultative status with the United Nations Economic and Social Council since 2017. This side event will focus on education, eradication of poverty, zero hunger, climate change, and partnerships. We have an excited panel discussion lineup, and it's a pleasure to announce today's speakers. Participating with us are Vitor Graça, Superintendent of Fundação Abrinq. Vitor has more than 25 years of experience dedicated to social and childhood issues. He is a specialist in administration for third sector organizations by Fundação Getúlio Vargas, and a specialist in fundraising from Indiana University Center on Philanthropy. Karen Oliveira is a public policy and government relations director of the Nature Conservancy Brazil. Karen is a geologist and international relations PhD. Her 20 years of experience include work in international cooperation between Brazil, Africa, and Latin America, in efforts related to sustainable development, promoting the climate change agenda, managing protected areas, and improving environmental governance. Diane Whitehead is president and CEO of Childhood Education International. Diane has dedicated her career to issues that affect the lives of children and families. She is a specialist in global education, children's education and learning, the human right to education, nonprofit leadership, management, strategic direction setting, and program development. Thank you all for joining us today. We are truly excited to have you here for this meaningful conversation about the SDGs. Now, I would like to invite Vitor Graça to present Fundação Abrinq and to moderate the event. Vitor, the floor is yours.
Hi, thank you, Tamires. Thank you all. It's a pleasure to be here again, another year talk about children and this side event. Very important for us, and I want to say thank you to all of you. Boa tarde, bom dia, boa noite a todos, depending on when you're going to be with us. So our presentation, please. So Fundação Abrinq, or Abrinq Foundation. Abrinq is the Toy Manufacturing Association. They start the department in the beginning in helping children, toys for sure. They're worried about children and adolescents. So they start the foundation in 1990 and working as a bridge between who wants to help and the ones who need help. So we don't have children here in our yard. We support other organizations who do this. More than 250 organizations in Brazil are helped now. What we do, so starting with the new constitution and having a specific article 227 saying all the rights of children in Brazil, and education, health, protection, and there are like 20 different rights. Besides this, the Estatuto da Criança e do Adolescente, which is the more important law in Brazil, who has our all the legislations to help children in Brazil. So we having these documents, we develop and implement programs and projects. Have more than 15 running right now. We communicate and mobilize people, society, having campaigns like Pode Ser Abuso, campaigns against child labor, We have campaigns in August, for example, to improve breastfeeding, and other campaigns how to play. So different and very important campaigns. You can have all those information that I'm giving to you in our website. And as I said, we have education, health, and protection as main issues, but we focus on combating sexual violence, combating child labor. In the beginning of Abrinq Foundation were more than 9 million children in child labor. And for sure, Abrinq Foundation and other partners, we are now with 1.8 million. So we decreased the number, but we still have a big problem to solve. Combating child mortality, which is in Brazil a shame. We have like more than 100 children dying every day in Brazil for preventable causes. It's like a plane falling down with children in Brazil every day. And access and quality education is very important. It's a huge opportunities here in education, starting with daycare centers and the whole thing about the education in Brazil needs to be improved. Socio-emotional development and emergency. Emergency, nowadays we are in Rio Grande do Sul, which you know that was a huge problem with floods, and Abrinq Foundation has presence there. So some outcomes. In those 34 years, we benefit more than 9 million children in Brazil. Last year was 130,000 children benefited, and more than 76 programs and projects developed in since 1990. And Abrinq Foundation in the 2030 agenda. We start to talk about goals and development since the beginning, the Millennium Goals, and we work with other partners to have those SDGs. So we have 17 SDGs and 10 are related to children. There are goals with to children, to benefit children in health and protection and other issues. We participate as consultant status in ECOSOC. So talking today, the ECOSOC profile, they asked us to talk about the SDG number 1. So talk about the poverty in Brazil. So talk about everyone in Brazil. Now we have more than 200 million people living in Brazil. It's the new number, the census, how we call it here. 56 or almost 57 million people are living in poverty, which means they are living with $4 per day, and almost 20 million are living with $2 per day. And just to have to compare, in Brazil, one food basket's like $40. So to take a bus is $1. To buy 1 kilo of rice or beans, more than $2. So it's really important to talk about poverty income in Brazil. Showing in the graphic of this, if you can see, it was going up the number of people in poverty till 2021, and the government increased the Bolsa Família, which is cash transfer, with more CAD único. It's when people do they put their names and bank accounts to receive this cash transfer. So their number went down in 2000 last year, 26.4 people living in poverty. So talk a little bit about children, so up to 14 years old, and poverty and extreme poverty is much higher in this age group than in the whole population. And for example, children when they are working in child labor, the dollars that they receive is less than adults, for example. Children in Brazil, they are 43% poor. If you compare to adults in the last slide that you showed, we compare with 26. So, the number of children is up than the regular people. So it's like 20 million individuals living in poverty and 7.2 live in extreme poverty. So it's like $2 a day. So it's almost impossible to buy what you call here in Brazil a meal, a regular meal. We call marmita or PFs or like this. So one meal is like $3. And here we can show the graphic. So as we can see, it's the same behavior and with adults. So it's increased. The number was almost 50% in 2021. And in 2023, they went down, but it's still high because of the cash transfer. And the worst situation, they are poor, and 70% of these poor children, they are black or brown. So inequality, it's an important issue in Brazil, even about because of the racism, racial problem, even in locations. So we're going to see a graphic talking about the here. So 70% are black or brown, and 29% are white or indigenous. And talk about regions. And everybody knows here in Brazil we have problems with northeastern more than here in Sao Paulo and the south. So as you can see in the next slide, 2023, north 39%, northeastern 46%, more than south and other regions. So it's another issue. So we have problems. Even with the cash transfers, when they live in poor regions, they are out of internet or the possibility to be to receive the cash transfer. What we can do to try to find them and give them the cash transfer, social assistance, and opportunities to improve education and public policy. So the government need to improve public policy to reach those poor children wherever they are and help them to improve their education and income to develop their skills. So we talked about the number of children because of the cash transfer went down like 1 million children last year. We talked about 14. Now let's talk a little bit about adolescents between 14 and 18, which is another issue in Brazil. So to know if they understand, if they know about SDGs, Abrinq Foundation, we start research to recognize advance or if need some overcome challenge in Brazil. This QR code gives you access to this presentation, and we're going to repeat in other slides, so you'll be free to use this. So, and we know that adolescents, they need to be part of the solution. So they need to understand, we need to know if they are in the same pace of the rural population. So we asked them their age, so between 14 and 18. It's a good data sample because almost 20% of each age, and they were more like almost 2,000. It's a good sample to have. And about schooling, they were in the final years of elementary school or high school. So 92% of them they are studying. We asked them if they know UN and how if they know that if they have a perception of what is SDG. 55% they said yes. However, 44 said no. So they know a little bit about SDGs, but almost only 55% of them. And we asked them lots of questions, but I'm going to give you just the highlights. So the topics of interest of them. So we asked them, we gave them options, like free options. So they said their interests are health, environment, education, and basic sanitation was the first one. Health and environment and education, very important issues for them. And what about what they think that's important to improve their lives? And they said income, as we showed in the beginning. Low income is almost impossible to develop a better life, so they are worried about this. Health, it's even we have here in Brazil the SUS, the Sistema Único de Saúde, so the system of health for everyone, but it's not going so well. Safety, so I think because the drug dealers, they are worried about the safety, and education in the fourth place. So they recognize that it's very important to have education and income to develop better their lives. On the other hand, we asked them what they think that the government is doing in these aspects better. And they said food, housing, health, and income. So as we can see, we are not matching the interests of the public and what the government is developing. So they can't see the government solve the environmental problem. They referred the topics as the last slides: health, environment, education, as very important issues, and poverty and income and decent employment, inclusive work and production and consumption. So again, they know that we have SDGs, but I think what we are developing, or the government is developing, this SDGs issues, not the ones that they recognize as important. So, no, can I go back? Yes, here. Some aspects. So, to be a better method, so again, education holds the fourth position, and the governments talk about food, house, and health. So again, we have the QR code if you want to have this publication. And the last one, again, is about the topics. Equality, gender, and race are among the last in all the different perspectives, urgent needs, aspects better met, and indispensable to aspire future. So they recognize that it's important, but they are not on the top of the list. So having these results, as we can see, we have some consequence about not having income. We have like 9 million children depending on the food at the schools as the only food on their days. We need to have more daycare centers, so millions of children out of this opportunity to develop their lives. And prenatal care, we only can develop the prenatal care if they have income, again, to buy the food and the products that they need to have a good pregnancy. So there are lots of questions about nutrition too. But now I have, my time is over. We can talk in the end. We are going to have some questions of this. Thank you very much. And I think we're going to call Karen Oliveira and say thank you to you, Karen, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Victor. It's a pleasure to stay here and participate of this important event to discuss the relationship between environmental issues and the SDGs. So Victor asked me about a challenge to talk about the SDG 13, Action Climate, and the relation with climate and the climate justices. So, as you know, we need equilibrium between biodiversity and climate to maintain a healthy environment. And the participation of the people is fundamental to achieve the results of the SDGs. But in general, this is not equity participation. And we have a big challenge to change the scenario and include people to achieve the final results. So next slide, please. The first point is how we can characterize the global scenario of climate justice. 3 points is very important. No, the size and the form of the impacts, because in general, it's not the same impact for everyone. Marginalized communities, local communities, indigenous people, and children and human in general is more impacted by the climate change when we compare with other persons that compose the group of communities. The other point is the inequality between the developed countries and the countries in developing. Because this point, the responsibility of the impacts is different too. Because the most part of the emissions that contribute to the climate change is from oil and gas. And in this case, we have a long history with the developed countries using oil and gas to implement the economic development. And this relation with the other countries, especially in the South countries, it's very unequal. Area of climate justice is how we can assess, use, and implement the climate finance to support actions that can change the scenario of accelerate negative impacts in the countries. Because in general, when we discuss about the access of climate financial or credit lines, it's very different between countries and between people. because, for example, we don't have the possibility to open a direct access to indigenous people, for example. In general, they depend of a big organization or of the government to access these credit lines that support, and help to implement actions that can help avoid the climate change. So this is 3 important points when we discuss about the climate justice. Next, please. And when we discuss about our situation in Brazil, we have other important issues that we can include in this relation, because when we are discussing about the north part of the country, for example, we have a very complicated situation with deforestation and with the people that lives and depends of the forest. In general, the deforestation of the forest deforestation in Brazil is totally related with unfortunately, with illegal activities like illegal mining, illegal deforestation, illegal use of the lands, and it's impacted directly the local communities and the indigenous people. So it represents big part of the loss of the rights, the indigenous rights, the local communities' rights in this equation about when we discuss about climate justice in Brazil. The other part of the problem is the reality of our cities, and we have differences between cities in the north part of the country and in the south part of the country, but in general, the marginalized people lives the same problem in different of the part of the country or of the planet include. So this is other important point when we need characterize this scenario. And in our case, as I comment, the disordered expansion of our agricultural practices is part of the problem, not because the agriculture, because we have a very good and sustainable agriculture, but when we associate agriculture with illegal deforestation, they first make the deforestation and after to present a kind of legalization of the area, use the agricultural practices like cattle, for example, and this affects directly the local communities and the human rights of the communities and the indigenous people in their areas. So our scenario in Brazil, when we discuss about climate justice, we have these 3 points that we need consider, and the difference between the different parts of the country. The next, please. So, with this scenario, what the relationship with the climate justice and the tipping point? As you know, the tipping point is a situation where the forest or the people don't present the capacities to regenerate, to restore the initial condition. In our case, in Amazon forestry especially, studies present results that if we achieve 20% of the integrated area deforested, probably we can't establish a process to regenerate the forest. And with the climate change and the acceleration of the process, the reality of the tipping point, it's very close. And when we maintain a dialogue with other climate events like El Nino, La Nina, and the process of economic activities, this reality is very, very close. Last year, we have a terrible dry season, and this year, again, the dry season is big and long. So, in general, local communities, indigenous people, the municipalities is the most impacted negatively with the tipping point. And at the same time, the same problem that we have in nature, we have with the people, and reflect in social issues, especially with the people of the cities and in the local communities that present the necessity to change the place of they developed all their life, all the activities. And we have other class of tipping point, not just the impact in nature, but the impact with in the life of the people. And the other important point is how we can change the scenario, understand that the social issues and the nature issues in reality is integrated, and it's part of the challenge. Develop territorial plans that consider the people, the nature, and the activities that we develop in the area. Because in general, when they discuss about just climate issues, the justice, and economic activities, we develop an isolated project, not in an integrated vision that create solutions that we can implement transformative and systemic change in the scenario. If our logic is just project by project, we don't have an integrated vision of the problem. And to avoid the climate change and reduce the inequality in the action, in the climate action, we need this integrated vision and integrated planning supporting all the process. The next, please. And we have some challenges in this process. It's not easy, but it's necessary. And part of this is related with our modus of implement public policy. In general, we have different interests that we need work together and establish some common points that we can use these common points to develop the solutions. The other issue is very important to consider is the policy perception, because our public policy, we need this integration that I comment with different policies that we can present the solution, because the solution is not just one movement, one question. This is a sum of different possibilities and synergy between these different possibilities to transform the inaction in the policy. The other important point is the lack of representation. And in this case, it's very complicated because in general, opportunities are open to people participate in different governance process. But if the people not receive a good education, not receive opportunities to understand the problem, not receive opportunities to change their realities, the participation is not effective. When Victor presents the numbers about the education, about the poverty in Brazil, this is part of the problem. This is not just a question isolated in the case of the life of the people, but the interaction with the public policies too. Because we need a representative of the different actors, but we need an effective representation. And for this, we need more investments in capacity building, in education, in training, in open opportunities to all participate. And the other point is the resources. The flow of resources between the North and South, or developed countries and countries in development, is not sufficient to change the scenario of climate change. And nowadays, we understand with the size of the problem, if we just count with the public resources, probably it's not sufficient to. Partnership between different actors, include financial institutions, is fundamental to change the scenario and achieving other possibilities to implement the solutions. And in this case, it's not just a problem with or from public policies, but include the financial and private sector too. Altogether is fundamental to change the scenario. The next. And what is the role of the public policy of the government to promote climate justice? Part of this, of course, is development and biodiversity policies that reflect the reality of the biomes, but to reflect the reality of the people too, and include people in this building and implementation of the policies. The other important point, as I comment, is finance. We need different different fonts of resources to implement and to create solutions. And this is not include the flow of money, but the transfer of technology and knowledge too is fundamental when we are discussing about climate justice. And the other important point is the inclusion, because to make decision, we need in environmental issues a very strong governance when we have a responsible participation of different actors in the final decisions. This is, and to this set of issues happen, the government presents a very important role to improve the possibilities and to open possibilities to all participate. The next. And on the other hand, the importance of engagement and participation of the the communities. Of course, as I comment, it's very important to create opportunities and establish possibilities of empower the communities. The empowerment is it's a very important part of the process, and it's help in the mobilization of the groups, the different groups, and respect the acknowledgement in general. They present many different possibilities and solutions to help us in the construction and the building of the public policy and his implementation. And of course, this collaboration that when we open the possibilities, we have different modes to create this collaboration between the different groups. And the next. So, and what is at this moment innovative solutions for climate justice? When we discuss climate justice, we are discussing about the access of all people, all together. And to implement the solutions, we have some backgrounds that we need to improve and accelerate. For example, when we discuss the access of internet to improve the capacities, to improve the acknowledgement, or to diffuse the acknowledgement, we need the energy. But in general, marginalized communities, local communities, indigenous groups, or traditional communities, the access of energy is not sufficient to access the internet, for example. So, we need a sustainable energy. In our case in Brazil, we have a big part of our generation is from hydropower, but it's not represent a sustainable process, because the impact of the hydropower is very, very big. But the energy is clean, but the environment impact is very big. So if we can improve the access of renewable energy using solar, wind, and other environment services, we can open more opportunities for the people and improve the possibilities to reduce the inequality. The other important point is the nature-based solutions, because nature-based solutions use the nature to create, to implement, and to involve people in the implementation of efforts to reduce the climate change and the loss of biodiversity. And the other important point is about the cities. We need to improve our urban planning to develop cities, smart cities that support the climate change and involving people and create a better environment for the people in the cities. The next. And how is this intersection between climate justice and the social equity? We have three important points related to the health, because now, included at this moment, we are discussing a lot about the new biodiversity strategy. And when discussed about the social issues in this case, it's very related of problems in the health. recently, unfortunately, we have the COVID pandemic, for example, or nowadays here in Brazil, we have a big problem with dengue. And part of this is the negative impacts in our forest, in our environment. This relation between health is very big. And the disparities, the economic disparities is other important point, because the cost of climate agenda is high. And as I comment, we need to accelerate the possibilities to create the solutions and the flow of resources. And for this, we need innovative mechanisms, because if we maintain the same mechanisms, probably we not achieve the final results. And the education is the key for the most part of the scenarios, because the education create opportunities. And the next. To finish my presentation, I would like emphasize about the how we can reduce the inequality and promote the climate action and achieve the SDGs. Accelerate the efforts in the empowerment of the communities to improve the participation and the influence and the make decisions. The flow of the finance. We need different mechanisms to support the creation and the acceleration of the solutions to reduce the climate inequality, and public policies with the participation of everyone, because together we make the difference. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Karen. As we can see, it's not a silver bullet solution. You need to have a whole kind of different things to solve this problem. And I always say here, it's what kind of world we are going to leave to children, and what kind of children we are going to leave to the world. So we need to connect environment and people. So now I'm going to call Diane, who's in charge of education in Childhood Education International. Diane, are you with us? The floor is yours. Thank you, Diane.
Hello, thank you. So thank you to everyone. I really appreciate being with you. Good morning, good afternoon. It's an honor to be here. And I'm going to discuss a little bit about the role of partnerships in all of this conversation around sustainable development. And I will be looking a little bit through the lens of education, but we'll try to also be providing some information that goes beyond education, looking to other sectors within international development that are involved with sustainable development as well. So the goals, as you know, are interconnected, right? Our success in achieving 2030 agenda relies really heavily on our ability to work together. So today I do want to emphasize the importance of these partnerships, and again, particularly in the context of securing our children's future. At Childhood Education International, we really do focus on child development, education, learning, but we are constantly working across sectors to make sure that children's development is secure and that they have stable environments to grow in We work with health, we work through child protection, we work through social welfare and other sectors. So partnerships is something that we have to do. So we'll go to the first slide. And we know that this critical role of global partnerships is becoming even more critical. We can see that happening today. And I think there's such a temptation to pull back and sort of go into our own ways of planning agendas and writing plans without the participation of others. And that would be a very unfortunate mistake, because we know that working alone, working in silos, is not going to achieve the SDGs or achieve many of the other global problems that we are suffering from today. So collaboration, consensus building, working together, listening to each other, sharing ideas is really important for all of us working towards all the SDGs, all 17 of the SDGs, and for us at Childhood Education International, particularly for the development of young children. And when we're talking about young children, we're not talking about just the very young from, of course, we look at prenatal as well, and very young children, but also children of older ages also. So there's obviously a continuum of childhood that we're trying to address. Next slide. So focusing on partnerships, we've heard perspectives on the importance of several key SDGs already in this session. SDG 1, really looking at eliminating poverty. SDG 2, looking at eliminating hunger. SDG 4 was talked about in the climate justice and climate session, quality education and how important that is. SDG 13, climate action, which we just heard about, which was a really good session, and thank you for that session. And then I'm going to highlight a little bit on SDG 4, which is the focus of quality education, and also SDG 17, which talks about partnerships. So again, I'm going to talk a lot about partnerships and how we move partnerships forward. Okay. So we know that effective partnerships are absolutely essential for pooling our resources, amplifying our knowledge, leveraging our expertise, increasing our helping with our inefficiencies, helping us to increase efficiencies, avoiding duplication of efforts. Goodness, there are so many things that we're all working on, and sometimes we don't know who else is working on them. So being open to developing partnerships can help us to avoid duplication of efforts and addressing all kinds of really difficult challenges. By working together, we can really create those comprehensive solutions and address these multiple challenges simultaneously. Inclusive partnerships are absolutely crucial. We really have to involve governments, the private sector, civil society, local communities, and most importantly, at least we believe so, we must include children's voices and perspectives. They are the stakeholders of the future, and their insights can lead us to new, innovative, and effective solutions. Next. So for those progress and achievements, there are many examples of successful partnerships. For example, in education, we look to a partnership called the Global Partnership for Education, and it's just one example. There are many partnerships in education working at all kinds of different international regional, national, and local levels. But this is just one example. And the Global Partnership for Education is really the world's only sort of partnership-focused fund that provides for quality education in lower income localities. So they're really looking at the partnerships between funding and donors to what's happening locally, and how do we actually create a good balance of conversation and openness and sharing through those partnerships. The SDG Actions Platform is a global registry of multi-stakeholder partnerships to further the SDGs, and this graphic provides a look at this registry. And this is something we just found out about recently. I believe it's coming out of the UN Office for Partnerships. But look at how this really helps us to understand those many collaborative ventures that are happening and exploring the interconnection between what's happening in those sectors and the sharing that's happening in those sectors. So this is something you may want to look up. Okay, next. Then we know this has been something that's happened for a long time, right? This is nothing new to many of us, the fragmentation and silos, right, that we continue to live in. We continue to live in our little box or our little silo. And despite our successes at breaking down those boxes, breaking down those silos, we still face really significant challenges. Fragmented efforts and siloed approaches really do hinder our progress, and we need better coordination among different sectors and stakeholders to really create those unified strategies. So I'm really calling out today for all of us to push back on retreating into our little box or retreating into our little silos. There's such an inclination to do that, but we must not. We must make sure that we're open, that we're listening, that we're reaching out, that we're collaborating, and that we're forming partnerships. And capacity building for partnerships at all levels is really, really essential. We've got to take notice of this really overlooked area. How are we building the right platforms and competencies to be able to create and sustain these effective partnerships? They're going to need to be nurtured, and we have to do capacity building to nurture those partnerships. And resource mobilization, mobilizing sufficient financial resources still remains a challenge, especially in the face of all these global economic uncertainties. We must find those innovative ways to secure that funding and ensure that it's used effectively. There's a lot for us to do and to think about. Next slide. So we need to advocate for innovative financing mechanisms, such as blended financing, social impact bonds, public-private partnerships. These are all really important approaches that can provide the necessary resources for sustainable development projects. We need to find ways to do that really robust data collection and monitoring of those systems. Monitoring the systems, right? That's crucial. They allow us to track progress. This is something else that we can really make headway with this. And there's so many successes that are happening in looking at data collection, how we use data, how we make those data-driven decisions. This ensures that our efforts can be really effective and efficient. And then policy coherence. Policy coherence, both at the national and international levels, is really, really needed. We've really got to align our efforts and, how do we, right, how do we really get these to come together coherently? So that's where we need to call out for platforms, right, for new ways of sharing policies across so that we really can see those, share the information, how are they developed, How are they working, and how are they making an impact? So we need to find ways to ensure that we're looking at those implementation strategies. Next slide. So, when we're talking about sort of revitalizing global partnerships, how do we do that? We've really got to engage, right, those diverse stakeholders, again, including the children, to ensure that our solutions are truly inclusive, that they're paying attention to everybody, not just some people, but all people. Everyone's participation can lead to more holistic and sustainable outcomes. If we're looking for sustainability, right, we've got to include all voices. We need more South-to-South cooperation, and this is something we've talked about for a long time, and something that we at Childhood Education International are trying to achieve ourselves. How do we ensure that we can all be helpful and all have a part in achieving discussion across countries, across communities where similar issues are being faced? And that's why the South-to-South cooperation is so important. And we can foster innovation if we talk about the same issues that we're facing, right? The challenges, we can find solutions. Technology and innovation play a really critical role in enhancing partnerships. They improve efficiency, scalability, and the ability to monitor and evaluate all of our initiatives. And we know how important the discussions of technology have become in how we work together, how we share information, how we collect data, all those things that are going to be so important for really revitalizing global partnerships across the board. Next. We must view partnerships holistically, creatively, and innovatively. This includes working with the business sector, civil society, and directly involving, again, children as partners, right? Not just perhaps as voices, but as partners. Each sector brings such unique strengths and perspectives that can really enrich our collective efforts. And I know that one thing, we really try to do here at our organization is think across sectors, right? We obviously have to work with other sectors. We're working with health, we're working with child protection, we're working with social welfare, other sectors. But look at sectors that you haven't previously thought about looking at, right? What's happening in the engineering sector? What's happening in the medical area? What can we find from all sectors? Where are those holistic sort of creative partnerships that are happening in other sectors that we can look to, right, to get ideas? And then again, really, really, really advocating for this partnership with children. That's going to be so important. And we need to design really more effective and relevant interventions. Children are almost adults, right? By the time we turn around, our children will be the adults, and those adults are going to be the adults who are going to be shaping this world. Critical to include them. Okay, next. So I'll share with you a quick example from CE International, Childhood Education International. We recently launched a Center for Business Champions, and it's helping to bridge the gap between the business sector and child development. And these two groups have so many synergies and connections that are not always explored or leveraged really well. So we support these two different sets of stakeholders in building effective and lasting partnerships with each other. And so feel free to learn about more from us about that, but really important and something that we take seriously, really want to create these solid partnerships between the business sector and between the child development sector as well. Next. Yeah, so one thing that we know is going to be really important is building of trust. When we're developing partnerships, we've got to build trust. That takes time, right? It's something when you're building trust, you're building a relationship, but there are ways to be able to do this that can speed up the process just by making sure that we're open to other people's ideas, open to listening to them, open to finding new ways to communicate and to share. But trust building is essential. And then we have misaligned priorities. That's something that can happen through consensus building when we're in partnership with others or building a partnership. How do we align those priorities so we're not aiming at all different things, aiming arrows at all different areas? How do we find those common areas that we can rally around? And then we have different cultures, language, and perspectives. These things can all hinder progress unless we take time to build those bridges that are really going to find this common ground for us to work together. Next. Thank you. So I'll share another example from CE International of approach that we designed to build our capabilities to undertake partnerships. This is something we gave an awful lot of thought to. It's a model that looks at the skills and competencies we need to hold as individuals to work effectively with others, as well as the processes we can take to make working together as smooth and seamless as is possible. And again, since we work in the education sector, we focus on education, but this approach and this model can be applied to any sector that you're working in. It can be applied to climate change work. It can be applied to health issues as well. We call this education diplomacy, and you'll see some of the areas that may seem familiar to you just when you hear about partnerships in general. But I suggest that we really talk more about models such as this that can help to guide us through that partnership building process. This is something we call the 6C model. There are lots of partnership models out there, but they can be really helpful in guiding your efforts to create partnerships. Next. And the whole sort of interconnected ecosystem that we exist in, we must see ourselves as a part of that interconnected ecosystem. We talk about it, but sometimes we feel separate from it as well. So we've got to find where these relationships exist and where they're crucial for our success. Every action that we take impacts others, and collaborative efforts can really create that positive ripple effect so that the change that we're creating towards sustainability is something that others are also taking up as well, that they're seeing that change, that they're moving forward. And those collaborative relationships, building and maintaining these strong relationships are really essential for facilitating any kind of collaboration or collective action. Relationships are key, so keep that in mind. They're key for us in working towards our common goals. Next. So here we've just kind of put together some questions that think about these key areas, right, of partnerships. What are the best ways that we can collaborate with each other meaningfully? How do we build these skills and competencies in ourselves to ensure effective partnerships? And that's all about the mechanics of working together. How do we do that? How do we collaborate? For sustainable funding, how can we ensure sustainable and predictable funding for long-term projects aimed at achieving the SDGs? And we need to find those innovative solutions to secure and allocate resources efficiently. Equitable and inclusive partnerships. What strategies can we employ to ensure that our partnerships are really aimed at being equitable. Are they including all voices? Are they included voices from the entire global perspective? Young children must be heard. We've got to remember that. They're the adults, they're the champions that are going to carry forward this positive change in the world. Measuring impact. What are the best practices for measuring the impact of partnerships on the SDGs? How can we improve transparency and accountability to ensure our efforts are making a difference? Next. So how do we find that way forward? We must recognize that building and sustaining relationships is a key foundation of successful partnerships. These relationships enable us to work together towards our shared goals, not our goals, but our shared goals. So we've got to recenter these relationships on shared goals. Collaborative frameworks. I'm really urging the creation of more collaborative frameworks, more platforms that can facilitate that knowledge sharing and that joint action. We've got to be really active in finding more of these approaches to collaboration and more ways to be able to share information about how we are really making those frameworks work for us to form these partnerships. It's vitally important. That commitment to action. Encourage all stakeholders, please, to make concrete commitments and take action towards achieving the SDGs. We must move from discussion to implementation. It's a hard step to take. Sometimes when we're discussing, right, sustainable development, the SDGs, it feels like we're actually taking action, but we're not. We have got to make a plan, get together with others, talk about shared ideas, talk about shared goals, and really move that forward. And future vision. Finally, let us reinforce our vision of sustainable and equitable world by 2030. Wouldn't that be wonderful if we could really see that progress at that marker of 2030, and we can say, look at the things that we have done. So strengthening global partnerships are really crucial for realizing this vision, and together we can really create a better future for all, especially our youngest and most vulnerable in the world. I think that's so important for all of us to remember that we can make that difference. So I'd like to just end by saying, you know, when incredible new dynamic change happens in the world, it's typically through partnerships. It's people and organizations. It's coming together, right? So let's ensure that we place a sustained effort on sustainable development for people and our planet, and keep children at the forefront of positive global change. So thank you so much. I appreciate your attention, your commitment to this. Let's work together, leveraging our strengths and our partnerships to achieve the sustainable development goals. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Diane. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Victor. That was really interesting. We will now open the floor for questions. The first one is for Karen. How can we help to increase and promote climate justice, being an organization that protects children's rights?
My phone is closed. So, well, we don't have just one solution or just one answer, but I would like highlight 3 points. First, occupy the spaces, because in general we have many organizations of indigenous people, traditional communities, Other examples, environmental organizations, conservation organizations, but the number of organizations that developed work with and together children is very, very small. And we have many opportunities. We have the conference of biodiversity, climate conference, the ECOSOC and others. So if we can increase the participation of these organizations, include now in Brazil, we have a big opportunity because next year we have the COP30. So if we can improve the participation of these organizations in these spaces of governance is very important. The second point for me is stimulate and incentive the participation of the child, because they, in general, present very interesting opinions and solutions, and we have the possibility to organize the participation of this group. So this is other point that I believe is very important, and we can open possibilities to the future too. And the third point for me is the work in partnership. Partnership is key for all the solutions and the process. Not just working just with other organizations that work with children. Work together, environment organizations, work together, human rights organizations and others in these spaces of the governments to influence the process. This is not just one solution, this is a set of ideas, but I believe this is important to occupy and to improve the presence, to create solutions in this way about the climate justice. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. There's a question for Diane. Diane, children today experience anxiety about climate change. What resources and support systems can we create to help children cope with these anxieties and empower them to find hope for the future?
Yeah, this is a problem that's being faced. We hear about this from so many teachers that we work with and parents. There is a lot of stress and anxiety around these issues for children. So I think we have to make sure that we are creating spaces for children where they are in school or other types of learning spaces that they may be in the community, where they're really feeling that they are able to be participants and solving problems. I think the more that we can focus, children are incredibly creative problem solvers anyway, and I think the more that we can focus on children as problem solvers, right, the more we can empower them that change is possible, change can happen, and the challenges that they may be hearing adults talk about are things that we can overcome just by coming together, sharing our ideas, being creative, thinking of new solutions. We really do have to help children to cope with this. And it is up to those teachers and parents, right, to manage some of the information that children may be hearing from outside the family or outside of the school that can worry them and concern them. So we have to both position them as what I would call solutionaries, right? Finding solutions and feeling empowered that they can come up with good ideas, and also make sure that information that is coming to them, that we're sort of moderating that information, right? So that they can have a discussion with us about it as a parent, or a discussion with their teacher about it. There are a lot of resources for helping to alleviate stress. I would take a look at some of the material that UNICEF has put out on this issue. There are lots of other organizations certainly that are doing this work, but UNICEF has been particularly coming forward in this area. And just please keep those children with hope for the future. That's the most important thing. They're, again, the ones that are probably going to have to come up with a lot of these solutions. If we keep them hopeful and feeling empowered, that is a long way to be able to relieve their stress and anxiety.
Great, thank you. There's a question for Victor. Does the skepticism showed in the research relates to the levels of inequality in Brazil?
Oh, you know, I don't know if I'm naive. I know I'm a very optimistic guy, maybe both. And I saw these results as opportunities. So children and adolescents in this case, they are saying that they have other interests, other needs. And the governor are delivering the same thing they were delivering for the last years. So people said they need to be part of the solution and say to the government what they want, what they need, instead just receive passively the things that the government is giving to them. So they need to go to, as Karen said, to Conanda, Conama, ECOSOC, other places. So be open to say to the government, you know, we need income, we need education. We are giving us just food, and we need other things. So it's more than an opportunity to this generation to say to the other generation, say, you know, we need different things.
Okay, thank you, Victor. We have a last question for Karen. Adding to the question above, does the early childhood issues and the environmental problems can be related for their urgency? And if it is the case, how can we emphasize that connection?
Sorry, Tamilis, I can't hear you very well. The connection about, sorry?
Yes, just 1 second. Adding to the question above, does the early childhood issues and the environmental problems can be related for their urgency? And if it's the case, how can we emphasize that connection?
Well, in general, the children is very impacted with the negative issues related with climate change. No, this is very vulnerable, and normally when we discuss about local communities or indigenous people or marginalized communities in the cities, we have, as Victor present in the graphics, no, we have a big number of Black people, brown people, no, we have a big number of human in general. And the other point is the children. So in general, the perception is very, the focus of the perception is in the negative impact in the environment, but not in the people. So part of the challenge is how we can include the social indicators, especially related with children, in the climate and biodiversity policies. Because in general, we are discussing about the animals, we are discussing about the other points, but we don't discuss about the people. And when we discuss about the people, we don't discuss about the child. We discuss about the communities. So if we can, and part of this, my last, the first question that you present for me is part of this answer too, because if we can occupy the governance spaces and present the social indicators related of child issues to include in climate policies, we can highlight the situation and start the building of solutions. This is part of the process. This is my idea for this question. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. And Diane, would you like to say something?
Yes, thank you. I'd just like to add one comment. When I was speaking about keeping children hopeful, I think that is so important. But one of the things I'd like to emphasize too is, be honest with children, right? They are fearful and they do feel anxious. And if it's, very hot, you can talk to them about the fact that, yes, it is very hot. And here are some things that we can do to help to keep us cool, right? Teach them those things that can be done today to help with the situation. Because I think there's a temptation to want to say things like, oh, well, it's not that hot, or, it's been hot all week or something. And but try to meet them with their fear and give them some solutions that work, and then let them come up with some other ideas about how they can also deal with some of the changes that are happening around them. So thank you. And I also really agree. Children are one of the most vulnerable populations that we know of, right, to climate change. There's a lot of information that's coming out now on how all these changes are affecting children physically, right? Especially, I know we've got climate issues sort of happening all around us, but particularly on this heat issue and how it affects the development of young children. It's very serious. So that's something that I just wanted to comment on, and thank you.
So I want to thank you, Karen. It's sad that we can talk about the floods in Rio Grande do Sul, or I have some questions about this. Thank you, Diane. There are some questions about give back. We're going to talk next week about this, maybe. So I want to say thank you to you all, to Karen, to Diane, our team here who organized everything to have this event. See you next year. Thank you very much. Thank you, people.